hear your quiet whispers, and you heal my broken heart. Even some of my friends turn enemies, and they pray for right to feel. And remember, you give us your only begotten son, but we gave him the word of life. Send down your warriors with the hello, they carry down to the end of days. No matter how the devil try trick me, unto you my soul I will give. Father, I know this storm is coming, I can see the high tide raise. Without you there is no other, could there be that will is my sin? No weapon that form against us shall not prevail. No man that rise against us, that war they shall never win. Because I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer. Oh, I will conquer. Rise up and conquer them. I am a man. I am a champion. I am a warrior. So who are you to tell me that I cannot make? Who are you to tell me that I am not the greatest thing that God ever created?
Good morning, Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. You're listening to Hard Talk Grenada. A very special good morning to those of you joining us on 97.5 City Sound FM, 89.5 CRFM, 92.9 Cicero Radio broadcasting from Hillsborough, Carriacou, and of course 94.9 WeiVybz Radio out there in Brooklyn, New York. A very special good morning to those of you joining us on the live video, whether it's on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, wherever you may be. Good morning to you. I know we had a scheduled press conference for what time? 10 o'clock. But that has been rescheduled to 11. So we're only here with you for about half an hour or so. All right. Of course, we're always happy to have you. We're always happy when you guys can engage in conversation with us. Not just us sitting here talking on our own, right? Everybody engaging in conversation. So at 11 o'clock, there will be that press conference that we've all been waiting for. It's been rescheduled from 10 to 11 o'clock. So stay tuned for that. Now, we don't have much time to talk, but there are a few matters, a few pressing things that I need to get off my chest this morning, right? There was and for those of you who didn't get an opportunity to see it, can go back and look at it, where the Minister for Education was on GBN To The Point last night, not to the point, beyond the headlines, last night, shedding some light on what's happening in the education arena, what's going on with our kids as it relates to exams. And, and I always say that we have to, and we're asking for the government to be flexible, but we ourselves must be flexible. So since this whole issue of COVID started, all I've been hearing from the unions is no. No, we don't want to use MSTAR. No, we cannot use e-learning because teachers do not have the facilities to do it. No, you cannot use a summer break to have exams. No, we don't want to have CXC in July. No, you cannot have CPEA, cancel it. No, every single thing is no. And I am wondering, where is the compromise? If you are saying no, okay, fine. You disagree with us having exams at this particular time. Fine. You disagree with MSTAR. That's fine. You disagree with the e-learning process because tools are not available to everyone. That's also fine. That's a lot of no's. So where in all of that are the resolutions and are the solutions? And is it just that you are there to say no? Or are you there to collaborate and create an environment that is beneficial for everyone? And see, that's where my problem is. It's okay to say no. It's okay to not agree with something. It's okay to disagree. We don't always have to be on the same page, and that's okay. All of that is fine. But when we become disagreeable to the point where there is absolutely nothing that you can say or offer to me that I am going to agree with, even partially, that is where I start having a problem. You know? So I would like to see more of, I'm not saying that the unions shouldn't say no. I'm not saying that we shouldn't disagree on things and that we should all agree on everything that the government says. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, what I'd like to see more of is constructive criticism. What I'd like to see more of is collaboration. What I'd like to see more of is suggestive reasoning, where I put out my suggestions, you put out your suggestions, and we meet each other halfway. So we can chop through both suggestions and see if we can meet a middle ground. See if we can find something that works. But if I'm the only one looking for solutions and all you're doing is just batting down all of the solutions that I'm presenting to you, then I do not see how we can ever move forward. And that is one of the biggest problems we have. I want to see more. You know, they said COVID is going to bring a lot of people together. But not only is COVID bringing a lot of us together, COVID is showing a lot of people up for their true colors. And that we must also pay attention to. So what I'd like to see from the unions, because at the end of the day, while you are fighting for the rights of the teachers, while the Ministry of Education is working on the government's behalf to provide the atmosphere that the teachers can appreciate, who is fighting for the children? That's my question. Who has their heart and their soul in mind? Their well-being. And I mean, honestly, their well-being. Not just a consideration, but their well-being. Who has that in mind? And that is what I want us to focus on. That at the end of the day, when there is a push and a pull between the two parties, Ministry of Education and the Union of Teachers, when there is that push and pull, in the middle of all of that are the students looking left and right and stuck in the middle, trying to figure out who is right? Who is thinking about us? Is this fight really about us and for our well-being? Or is everybody else taking their well-being into consideration and we are just stuck in the middle as pawns? So these are the things that we must consider. So it's okay to disagree. It's okay to not have the same concept in mind on how you want to see things. But there must be some sort of collaboration. At some point, you have to meet in the middle. I can't always have my way and you always have your way. At some point, we must both agree to disagree and meet in the middle. That is what is most important. Secondly, and I'm going to take a few calls this morning. We have about half an hour left, but I think I should open the lines because I love hearing from you guys. I love when you contribute to the conversation at hand and we can discourse. I learn from you and you learn from me. And that's how the world works, right? Can't always be one-sided. But I do want to open the lines. Remember, the number to call is 440-7377 if you're calling locally. And if you are in the diaspora and you want to call, it's 347-329-3101. And let's contribute to the conversation. Another big issue I have is with us as a people not knowing our laws. Listen, there is a website called laws.gov.gd. During this time, I suggest that we acquaint ourselves with the laws of Grenada, that we acquaint ourselves with the policies, protocol, and the constitutional guidelines that govern our people, please. So we don't go on national TV and start talking nonsense about the government of Grenada offer teachers $500 out of the money they take back from them if they would never strike again. I mean, That was the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard in my life. And I have a caller on the line. Let me take that caller and then we'll get back into it. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Ms. Duncan. Good morning to Grenada.
Good morning.
Ms. Duncan, I feel your pain. I feel your gripe because this is something that always bothers me. But then again, not everyone in leadership position is leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Now, online learning is a regular thing. It's a normal thing. And when the union fights against that, they're also fighting against something that these same kids would have to do in the future if they're going to do extra learning.
Of course.
There is a lot of classes online. I'm doing classes. It's online also. And I think this is just my opinion. This is not Hard Talk opinion, but this is my thing. I think basically most of the mentality of some people in leadership positions, especially unions, because we're speaking about unions in this case, is just as asking a man to get pregnant. That's impossible. So I think that some people are in the wrong position. You shouldn't fight everything, and then you're fighting something that is beneficial for the kids.
But
it's beneficial for the kids.
But Colin, not only that, in reviewing social media posts and listening to people, some people don't even understand what the e-learning process is about. A lot of people still believe that the e-learning process is actually the MSTAR program when that is not what it is. The e-learning is the overall platform. It's the process. It's the method. The MSTAR is just the platform. And that's what a lot of people still don't even understand. So they don't even know what they're fighting against.
And but while you say that, Ms. Duncan, which is so true, they're also fighting against. I want parents to listen to me very carefully, and the union to take this into consideration. When you say you don't want the kids, you don't want the teacher, you don't want the kids to use MSTAR, it means that you're saying that you, at every term, parents should fork out some money to go get school books.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because on the MSTAR program, as far as I understand, there would be material there.
Correct.
Books that the kids can use.
Correct.
That you're talking about a couple $1,000 that the parents could use and do something else.
Yeah.
So these people, the union is just talking, and I really wish that parents would listen. And it's time, I think, parents should say to the unions, hey, look, we know you have your position in the society, but don't cross the line.
Yeah.
Because parents can be saving with that program, as far as I understand from the minister, thousands of dollars, because you would have books online and stuff like that. You get to see your children grades and stuff, and that is good.
Yeah.
So you're not left behind. The parents are not left behind in anything.
Yeah.
You know, and this thing pisses me off. And again, before I leave, I know other people have to call you. I have a short time. Not everybody in a leadership position are leaders.
Very true.
Ms. Duncan, have a good day.
You too, caller. Thank you so much for your contribution, and such a valuable contribution to the conversation as well. Not everybody in a leadership position is a leader, and that is so true. And it emulates from some of the things that I've been seeing. Now, we have to understand, and as a people as well, even in our private lives, sometimes husbands and wives, they don't agree. So is every disagreement in a marriage going to lead to divorce? Every time your wife don't agree with you, you're gonna pick up your thing and say what you're going until you could meet my demands? Is that what happens in a marriage? And it's the same thing. It's a collaboration, because at the end of the day, we must see the product in which we are working for, or the product in which we are working towards. And that is so that our children can come out on top. In all of this discussion, where I see no to the M-Star program? Is that taking the children's needs into consideration? When I hear, no, we're not accepting any training or any exams during our summertime because you can't touch our holidays, is that the children being taken into consideration? And I'm not speaking to any specific teacher. I'm not speaking to any specific person, but because I know that there are teachers out there who go the extra mile, beyond extra. Right? I have 2 children of my own. So I'm not only speaking from a place of just hearing or knowledge. I'm speaking of a place of experience. I've taught, so I understand the process. I have kids, so I understand their needs. You understand? So it's very difficult for me sometimes to process this kind of behavior, because at the end of the day, all I see are the children. And there's no children's union in them. There's no children's union that says, okay, well, you know what? The teachers want to strike, we're going to strike too. We ain't going to work. And then the ministry has going to school, and then the ministry has to decide, okay, well, the children decide they ain't going to school, so we have to close down the school until the children's union decide that they're coming back to school, and if you don't work, you don't get paid. You understand? Who's fighting for the children? We have parents fighting government, teachers fighting government, union fighting government. Who is fighting for the children? That is my question. That is my problem. Our objectives, our goals are very misguided because we feel that everything has to be a fight, that everything has to be some sort of conflict, some sort of confusion, that everything has to be aggressive. That we can't just disagree and then find a way to figure it out or to work together. That everything just has to be politics. Why does everything have to be politics? So last night I'm looking at this program, hoping to be edified, hoping to hear the real concerns of teachers, because that is why the Minister of Education is there. She's there, okay, fine, as a teacher. Call and get facts, get information. Some of us are just guided based on what people tell us, We never read a book yet. We don't know no law. We're not interested in the laws of Grenada. We consider hearsay news and information and facts, and that is sad. How many of us have reviewed the laws? How many of us as workers, as employees, knows what our rights are as an employee? How many of us knows when we are being infringed upon? And not just saying it because somebody say, well, it's my right to have freedom of speech. But you don't know what qualifies as freedom of speech. So you go around saying what you want and slandering people's name and disrespecting people. And then when they bring you to court, you say, well, I didn't never know. The law does not account for never know. Because it is there for you to educate yourself, for you to edify yourself. But we figure that it is better for us to jump up and make melee, because it sounds better, it feeds our interest better, and we feel nice when all the melee is being made. We have another caller on the line. Good morning, caller.
Duncan.
Good morning.
Yeah, sorry for the delay because I was multitasking.
No problem.
Miss Duncan, last night I listened carefully and attentively to Minister Pierre and all the calls that was coming in.
Mm-hmm.
But there was one caller, and honestly speaking, I hope she's not a teacher. No. I hope she's not a teacher.
I said the same thing.
She was making she was making reference to some $500.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you accept that,
you could never strike again.
Yeah. and Miss Duncan, the reason why that stands out for me, and if the lady is a teacher, I hope we'll make her name and her features picture public.
Mm-hmm.
Because the point is me personally, and generally speaking, our society, we hold teachers in very high esteem and high regard.
Yes, we
you
do.
understand? We treat teachers like superhuman beings, so to speak.
Yep.
So when we hear, I hope, like I said, I hope she's not a teacher. So when we hear people who are supposed to be teachers saying certain things, we say to ourselves, well, I have common sense. You know, these folks have a higher level of academic intelligence than me.
Or at least supposed to.
Well, exactly. So how come we are so far apart in terms of understanding certain things? And that's the reason why. You know, when certain statements are being made, it leaves us with no other choice but to look at it from a political nature.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because we have no other choice, because we say, well, that doesn't make no sense. The only sense it could make
is
that
politics.
if you want to embarrass people, you understand, from a political nature. And now I'm going to jump from that. Now, Miss Duncan, one of the things Grenadians have to know, our people in Grenada have to know, and our Grenadian brothers and sisters in the diaspora have to know, is that we was dealing with a crisis here, and they are fully aware of it because it is more intense in the neck of the woods.
Right.
And we set up a system here for our children to still receive. I'm not going common sense, so I'm not speaking with people with all this academic thing. So to receive the information in terms of to continue learning.
Right.
Ms. Duncan, it's important that we make the Grenadian population know that there are Grenadians, people in Grenada, that attempted to sabotage that platform.
Yeah, I heard about that. Very loud and clear.
And sooner or later, we have to expose these people. The reason why I am saying that is because these are folks that receive the education in Grenada in the system that we have. They achieve everything academically through the system that we have here.
Yeah.
When things was normal. And today, we are dealing with a crisis where children are at home, and the powers that be, the government, set up a platform to continue providing academic information to our children. And we have Grenadians in Grenada, for whatever reason, they choose to sabotage that platform, whereby our children will not be able to continue the academic learning whilst they are ahead. Miss Duncan, how should people like me, not you, who is coming from a revolutionary background.
And Caller, I don't want to rush you, but remember we are pressed for time.
I understand. How do you expect me to summarize these people? These people could never be patriot. If you want to sabotage the learning process of thousands of young people in this country, I make no apology by saying we should place you on the parade square up at the fort. Have a pleasant day.
You too, Caller. Thank you so much for your contribution. Guys, we have to do better as a people, and I'm very honest in saying this. I make no apologies, of course. Everything I say, I mean. That we have to do better as a people in terms of self-education. So, for example, last night again, I hear, and I'm assuming it is not a teacher that made this comment, but maybe it's a parent. So you have people asking for refunds for CXC. God, Lord Jesus. Refunds for CXC because they paid for exams. Now, let me be very clear. If you don't understand something, please make it your duty to get information regarding it. And making broad statements and then afterwards saying, oh, well, I was only seeking information, that doesn't work anymore. If you're asking something, ask something properly. You don't know what the money is for, ask then, okay, are we having exams? No. Fine, then are we being refunded? Why do you need to be refunded? Because we're paying for the exams. Then let somebody explain to you that you are not paying for exams, you are paying for certification. So that at the end of the day, your child is certified in that area or in that subject area. The exam is only a means to an end. You aren't paying for the exams. So while you may go to wherever it is, a treasury, and you say, okay, well, I'm paying, it's examination time, and I'm paying for my child to sit biology, chemistry, math, whatever it is. At the end of the day, it is not the exam you are paying for. You are paying for the certification. Please, I need people to understand it, because there are people going out there saying, oh, well, they changed the concept of how the exam is supposed to be. Listen, I'm a University of the West Indies student. The University of the West Indies, and I'm an online student, so I do complete e-learning, right? There was no introductory course to e-learning. We had to jump in and swim, right? At the end of the day, the majority of the teachers who teach, who have been to the University of the West Indies, who have received degrees via the University of the West Indies in their online courses, know exactly what e-learning is about. And the MSTAR platform, let me add, is a replica of that e-learning platform that we use in the University of the West Indies, right? So some of the people who are complaining that when I look at their platforms and I see early childhood education from the University of the West Indies open campus, and I see all of these things, and I'm wondering, well, what are you complaining about, since you already used a platform very similar to this and there was no pre-training? You just had to jump in and you had to swim. But I'm saying this to say that when the University of the West Indies realized that we cannot sit exams anymore, so we go into the campus in Mary Show House, we sit our exams after we've done all of our courses online. Now, once that is done, we get our grades, we are certified in this specific course. Now, let me be very clear. When the University of the West Indies found that we couldn't go and sit our classes, they decided that they were going to tailor our exams. They were going to make it different. They were going to make it possible for us to be at home but still sit our exams. They restructured the exam. Do you really think students like us could go and say, well, I want my $900+ back because I didn't get the exam I was promised and I paid for my exam? Do you really think we could say that? Of course we cannot, because it is up to the institution. And you see, that's why a lot of our children these days are failing, because we use one stick to measure everything, because we feel that, okay, CXC must be paper 1 and paper 2, and our children must go and they must sit in rows and columns and they must complete the exam, and it must not be tailored in any way, because if it's tailored in any way, then the exam is different. That is not true. We must be able to move and shift with the times, flexibility, and that's what globalization is all about. So when our children leave this little island that we are on here and they move to bigger parts of the world, that they can function and they can adjust and they are flexible. That is what it is about. So we here jumping up and making noise about e-learning and making noise about what platform is good and what platform is bad, and at the end of the day, it's not for us. It is for the children. It is what is best for them, what is beneficial for them at the end of the day. All the teachers are jumping up and making noise, and all those union members are jumping up and making noise. They already have their education. They already have their certification. At the end of the day, if they decide they're not working for the government of Grenada anymore, they can get a job elsewhere. Our children are just starting off. They need that foundation. They need that support. They need to know that things will change, can change, and they must be able to adapt to that change. Remember in 2008 when we were crying for change? Oh, we want some change. A wind of change. It's blowing in the air. Not change we get. We didn't like it very much, but it's change we got. So we must be fair to our children. Educate yourselves. This goes for parents. This goes for teachers. This goes for people in society. Use time educating yourself. Spend less time making confusion. Spend less time jumping up in things that don't concern you. Spend less time going on Facebook and making live videos about uselessness. Spend less time in TV. Spend less time playing politics. Pull up the laws of Grenada and read. Learn a few laws. Educate yourself. Go through the laws that apply to you so you wouldn't go on national TV and make a fool of yourself by telling the Minister of Education that they were given a clause that $500 and they can't strike again. Striking is part of the Constitution. It is your constitutional right. It's there in law. You really feel that the government is that senseless that they would do something like that and put it on paper, mind you? I mean, come on. Sometimes we have to think about the things that, and even if it is something that you did not see and it is something that you were told, you have to be able to sit down and reason and say, but wait, that don't make any sense. That don't make any sense. 1 + 3 could never give me 5. We have to be able to do that. If we cannot do that, we lost as a society, because we're going to continue to just be listening to what people, we riding on what people say. We're not able to come up with our own original thought or idea. We cannot use any critical thinking. And these are the things that we expect our children to do, and yet still as adults, we fail to do that. So imagine a child a child that is expected to go and do CitysoundFM, sitting and listening to this kind of nonsense at 9 o'clock in the night. Big grown adults behaving in that manner. What do you leave for our children? What do you leave for our children? As even though you are represented by a union, a firm, a whatever it is, you never take anything anybody gives you as gospel. Do your own research. Don't let anybody come and push anything in your face and say, okay, well, this is what it is. No. Pick up the phone, make a call, do some research, ask questions so that you can get proper information. So if the unions brought that to your attention, some of you must have sat at some point and say, okay, well, that don't make any sense. Because, it's our constitutional right to strike. So if the government is saying they will give us $500 and we can't strike again, then, I need to call my lawyer, right? Common sense. Let's start using it better. Start educating ourselves. Sometimes I wonder why we can't just all live good, mind we own business, and drink plenty water and wash we hand. That is all we have to do. Mind your business, live good, educate yourself, drink water, and wash your hand. That's all you have to do in life, Sometimes we make things too complicated, more complicated than it needs to be. Things that we are fighting about, things that we are making all this noise about, and at the end of the day, when it is all settled and it's all said and done, you ain't hearing a word, not a peep, not a thank you, not okay, XYZ was done for us and we are grateful. Nope. All you're hearing is we don't want to do this. No, we cannot do that. Government not doing nothing. Government bad. Government ungrateful. Government thief. That's all you hear. You never hear them come back and say, okay, well, we are grateful because this is what we have been afforded. We are grateful because this is what has been done for us. We are grateful because this decision has been made. We are happy because we met in the middle and we have come to an agreement. We do not hear those kind of words. The 2 most popular N words in Grenada is no and negativity. That's the 2 most popular N words in Grenada. Because everybody quick to say no and everybody love the negativity. We share it, we tweet it, We WhatsApp all the way around. If it's some sort of confusion, take a snippet, and I feel I'm going to start to do that every day for the next, how much days left in the year. On my social media page, I'm going to post a piece of the laws of Grenada. Let us educate ourselves on the laws. Let us know what is afforded to us as employees, as employers. So if the union tell you to strike tomorrow, you know it's the union that have to pay you because it's them that tell you to work. It's your right to strike, but there must be something that controls or that protects the employer as well. Because yes, you can strike, fine, stay home, don't work. You don't work, you're not productive, you didn't produce anything. How do you expect to get paid? And if we go down that line, then we would find that every time there's a disagreement, then union go say, well, I'll come out and strike. Yeah, then we're going to shut down everything and let's all just strike. And we ain't worried because they go still have to pay us. It does not work like that. Educate yourself on the laws so that when people ask you to do things, at least you know what your rights are. At least you know what you are entitled to as an individual. So nobody can take advantage of you. And these are the things that we must consider. Instead of jumping up and beating table and calling people name and slandering and disrespecting. I mean, I listened to a radio program this morning, as difficult as it was. That individual continues to disrespect the Prime Minister and disrespect our Deputy Prime Minister and disrespect our Minister of Education by calling them all sorts of derogatory names on public radio. When are we going to stand up as a people and say that is enough? Is it until one of our names get called? And that is when we go say, well, what that person doing that for? What you going on so far? Or how long we go leave here on radio? Is that when that is going to stop? When it falls in our pocket? When it hits home? We must learn to condone things that we would like for ourselves. So it might sound funny. It might sound grand. It might sound like, yes, boy, TB, bacchanal, I like it. You know, my blood is pumping. But at the end of the day, the only time we will not appreciate it is when it falls in our pot. When one of our names or the names of one of our family members are the ones on the chopping block. And then we realize that what this person has been doing for so long has been wrong. But this is my plea to us as Grenadians this morning before I leave. Begin to educate yourself. Know your right as a worker. Know what the government is afforded or what the government can do for you, what the government can take from you, what the government is allowed to give to you. Know what your employer can do and cannot do. So you have to know your rights as an employer, know your rights as an employee, know your rights as a Grenadian. Learn the laws of Grenada. Sit down and go through. And let me give you the site again. It's laws.gov.gd. Pull up the laws and read the ones that apply to you and to your life. So you can't find yourself in Cowbelly Crossway. So you are not a victim of carrying slander. So you're not a victim of internet, internet bullying. So you don't get caught under the Cyber Act as inciting fear in people. Because a lot of y'all did that during COVID. And if the government of Grenada or whomever is responsible for taking it up decides that they will take it up, some of y'all will be paying a hefty fine or spending some time in prison. Guys, it is time for me to go because remember, we do have the press conference coming up at 11. But please, I appeal to you as a people. All I want to see is for us to become better versions of ourselves. Don't live in mediocrity. Don't wallow in it. Don't become comfortable in the fact that you just don't know, so you don't care. Educate yourself. The information is available to you. Use it as best as possible. And I will say it again. In life, all you really have to do to survive is live good with people, mind your own business, drink water, and wash your hands. Guys, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. In whatever you say and whatever you do, be safe and be secure. I always want to be talking with you and never about you. Please enjoy the remainder of your day And stay tuned from our for our press conference via GIS. We'll be bringing it live here with the Minister for Education. Please do enjoy the remainder of your day.
5 things you need to know about self-isolation. Stay home. If you are told to self-isolate, it means staying at home, not going to work, school, or other public places, and you should not have any visitors. Separate yourself. If you live with others, then you need to stay in a well-ventilated bedroom with the door shut. If you have to share a bathroom, then use it after everyone else. Don't share towels and toiletries, as this may put others at risk. Call ahead. If you develop symptoms such as a fever or cough, then seek advice first by calling the Ministry of Health's hotline at 538-4787 or 458-4787. Please do not show up at a medical center or hospital, as this may put others at risk. Take care with waste. If you test positive, your waste should be double bagged and disposed of separately. Create a buddy system. If you live on your own, you can plan with friends and family to check in with each other and run essential errands if one becomes sick. Once sick, they should leave groceries on the doorstep. Why it's important. COVID-19 causes a mild illness for 4 out of 5 persons. Self-isolating will help protect the older generation and those who may have underlying health problems from getting infected.
Protect yourself and our community from COVID-19. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. If soap and water are not available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with at least 70% alcohol. Use a tissue when blowing your nose, sneezing, or coughing. Immediately discard the tissue properly and wash or sanitize your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Let's do our part to ensure that each and every Grenadian remains healthy. To stay up to date, visit the Government of Grenada's webpage or the Ministry of Health's Facebook page. For more information, contact the Ministry of Health's hotline by calling 53-VIRUS. This has been a public service announcement brought to you by the Ministry of Health.
I say, nah, man. Wood, yo, this is the Don Man Lindy telling you to be COVID-19 safe. Stay home. That way we could play a mass sooner rather than later. Everything will come to pass. You know the thing go. Mass must play. How you mean?
Protect yourself and our community from COVID-19. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. If soap and water are not available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with at least 70% alcohol. Use a tissue when blowing your nose, sneezing, or coughing. Immediately discard the tissue properly and wash or sanitize your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Let's do our part to ensure that each and every Grenadian remains healthy. To stay up to date, visit the Government of Grenada's webpage or the Ministry of Health's Facebook page. For more information, contact the Ministry of Health's hotline by calling 53-VIRUS. This has been a public service announcement brought to you by the Ministry of Health.
We also have Secretary Mr. Kevin Andel and the Chief Education Officer Mrs. Angela Findlay, and we're talking basically this morning about CXC and the reopening of schools. So without any further ado, I will hand over to the Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Leslie, and I want to greet everyone in the room. Good morning, and of course, good morning to all those who have joined us for what I consider to be a very important press conference this morning, speaking about education, speaking about our students who are anxiously awaiting the final decision of the Government of Grenada as it relates to Caribbean Examination Council and examinations that our students here in Grenada will sit. Leslie and I want to share with those who are listening and to share with us a statement following which we are going to have some additional information from our permanent secretary, and then of course, as you indicated, we are going to hear in terms of questions not just from the media but also from persons who may wish to be part of the question and answer segment. Further to consultation held by the Caribbean Examination Council with permanent secretaries, chief education officers, and directors of education from all CARICOM member states, and following presentations made by Dr. Wayne Wesley at the 6th Special Emergency Meeting of the Council for the Human and Social Development on Education. The decision of the Council was that the most popular examinations in the CXC suite should take place within the period 29 June to 17 July 2020. While Grenada had intended that this period was, or indicated, that this period was not the best for students and teachers, we were placed in a position of having to carefully explore all possible ways of facilitating the examinations at the set time. The Ministry of Education, Human Resource Development, Religious Affairs and Information has since reviewed the local situation, and after consultation with key stakeholders, including the staff at the Central Ministry, or principals of primary and secondary schools, the Grenada Union of Teachers, members of the denominational school boards, parents and students, the following recommendations have been approved by the Cabinet of Grenada. For the Caribbean Primary Exit Assessment, CPEA, based on the feedback from key stakeholders and the fact that the CPEA is not as high-stake an examination as others in the CXC suite of exams, the Ministry of Education recommends not having current grade 6 students sit the schedule assessment, but rather to have them transition to secondary schools based on a composite score for each student to be derived from the following. A. Internal CPA assessment scores from CXC. B. Grade 5 minimum competency test scores. C. Grade 4 minimum competency test scores 2018 and grade 5 2019, of course. For the Caribbean Certificate of Secondary Level Competence, what we call CCSLC. Although this exam is deemed important as a benchmark examination for all Form 3 students and is of great significance relative to the CARICOM HRD 2030 strategy and SDG 4, the feedback from key stakeholders point to many challenges that are associated with students having to take the examination this year. Given that CXC assessment framework allows for students to sit the CCSLC whilst in higher grades, the Ministry of Education therefore recommended that the sitting of the CCSLC exams 2020 by students within the state of Grenada be deferred to 2021. For the Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate CSEC examinations. Although most feedback from key stakeholders support the sitting of the CSEC exams in 2020, some are of the view that CSEC examination should be deferred to the earliest possible time in 2021. If the Ministry of Education takes a decision to defer the exams to 2021, the accommodation of students for classes will be a challenge for all schools. Limited space and the demand it will place on their teachers are among issues of greatest concern. As a result of the foreseen challenges and the feedback from our key stakeholders, the Ministry of Education recommended to the Cabinet of Grenada and was approved that the CSEC examination 2020 be done in 2020 and should not be deferred to 2021. However, deferred arrangements for students with underlying conditions or special circumstances must be considered. The Ministry of Education therefore recommended and was approved by the Cabinet the following phased approach for the return of students and teachers in the current school year. This plan has been created to inform key stakeholders of steps to be taken in support of education for all students of compulsory school age. The actions are subject to the availability of public transportation for the commuting of students and staff to and from school each day. Of great significance is the Ministry's commitment to give all possible support to students and teachers, and particularly our students who are expected to sit those exams. Due regards for health and safety will be a priority. I therefore inform you of the phases in which this process would occur. Phase 1, which begins the 1st of June. Phase 1 includes the preparation for the return of Form 5 students only to their respective schools. Phase 2, return of students in CXC examination classes only and their teachers to on-site classes at schools throughout Grenada, secondary schools that is throughout Grenada, between 9 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. Phase 3, beginning the 15th of June, return of all teachers to their respective schools. Phase 4, beginning the 6th of July. In that phase, the Ministry of Education will facilitate 2 weeks of personal development activities with teachers, which would be done remotely. Of course, during that period, we would also review all of the protocols, existing protocols, as we look ahead. And that same period, 13th of July, actual CSEC examination begins. Phase 5, which begins the 20th of July, in that phase will be the vacation for teachers, 20th July to the 28th of August, and the last day for CSEC exam also fall in that phase, which is the 30th of July. Phase 6, which would be the 31st of August, begin the 31st of August. All teachers would again report for duties, and that would include in that phase the regular customary planning week for the new school year. Let me make it abundantly clear that during all of these phases, we will be guided by the Ministry of Health, the COVID-19 team, should anything change in our local circumstances as it relates to COVID-19. I now ask Permanent Secretary, Mr. Kevin Andel, to share with us briefly the protocols that would guide the return of students and teachers to school.
Thank you, Minister. The COVID-19 protocols for reopening of schools. I would not give you all of the protocols, but the major protocols. Before school reopens, the school compound must be sanitized according to guidelines approved by the Ministry of Health. 2, the Ministry of Education will contract additional cleaners and security officers, and all personnel would be oriented to perform routine cleaning and sanitizing according to approved protocols. 3, the Ministry of Education would provide a copy of the protocols to all principals who would share with their staff. And the Ministry of Education will ensure that an adequate number of toilets and hand washing facilities on the school compound are functional. Responsibilities of parents. Parents are encouraged to provide their children with hand sanitizers and other supplies which can help to keep them protected. All students will be required to wear a mask provided by parents. Parents or guardians are encouraged to notify principal through a print or electronic medium if children have pre-existing conditions which would make it impossible for them to be at school. Parents are also reminded, or parents are asked to remind their children that they should adhere to the protocols for social distancing at all times. Responsibilities of school administrators. Principals should present teachers and students with safety information and hold a health and safety briefing detailing individual and collective responsibility. All persons present on school compound must wear a mask. Principal will notify the Ministry of Education of students with asthmatic conditions. And also, principals should ensure that daily health and safety reminders are given periodically during the school day via the school's PA system or at the class level in the absence of a PA system. Principal would ensure that the classes and other areas of the school compound are cleaned daily with disinfectant solutions. Principals should ensure also that consideration is given to physical distancing, enhanced ventilation, contactless doors, and washroom facilities that allow for optimum health and safety practices. Principals would create a timetable to reflect staggered arrival and departure time for students to reduce chances of crowding. And last, in regards to the principal, wherever a tuck shop is to function on the school compound, this must be done in accordance with COVID-19 protocols for the preparation and or distribution of food items. Teachers also have responsibilities, and one of the responsibilities would be that class and subject register should be maintained daily so that contact tracing can be facilitated if the need arises. Poor health or illness. Guided by the Education Act or Labor Code, principals, teachers, and other members of staff with pre-existing condition should not report to work. Each school must have a room or space to accommodate any student or teacher who may be displaying any symptom of COVID-19 while in the school. A family member must be contacted immediately where possible. An arrangement should be made to have the ill person taken to the nearest health facility. The Ministry of Health would conduct random rapid testing of personnel in various schools as needed. An amendment. This protocol may be amended if requirements change or if new guidelines are presented by the Ministry of Health. I would like to say these guidelines would be presented to all stakeholders, so you would be able to read it in their entirety. What I strive to do is just to give a snapshot of what the protocol is presenting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, and thank you very much, PS. All right, so we have with us, as we mentioned earlier, Mrs. Angela Finley, the Chief Education Officer. You have a few remarks you'd like to make as well?
Good morning to everyone present and those joining us remotely. I do trust that all persons within hearing distance are safe and comfortable, and I trust that this would continue. For those who are not in the best of health, I do trust that you would soon be in the best of health again. Coming up with this guideline and the protocol has not been an easy task because, as everyone or most persons are aware, the situation is very fluid. But what I want to assure everyone is that at the ministry we are committed to doing all we can to ensure that health and safety is of paramount importance as we strive to facilitate the best learning opportunities for all our students. We commit to continuing to listen to concerns, and we do value them, and I trust that everyone will receive what has been presented in that light. So we do crave your continued support as we journey through this COVIDious period. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Finley. Colleagues, so you've heard a lot from the panel here. We now invite you to ask your questions. Is anybody ready as yet? All right, so while they get themselves together, I have one question from somebody on social media. They're asking our pre-primary school students to wear a mask all day. And the second question, how are these same pre-primary school students expected to stay away from the teachers?
Okay, so that question is very easy because obviously the person asking probably did not hear all that was said previously. Only, and I want to repeat, only Form 5 students are required to report back to school. We have not mentioned any other grade, any other level of the school system, and we do not anticipate that at any other level students would be required to return to school before September. And we still cannot even speak to September because we await maybe a time closer to September to assess the situation, to decide if we are going to be starting the new school year in September. Only God may know the answer to that, but only Form 5s are expected back in school.
Thank you, Minister. Okay, so Sherry and Noel, good morning.
Good morning.
Go right ahead, we're hearing you.
Yes, I just want a little extra clarity from, I think it was P.S. Andel that made mention of it, in terms of teachers and students with pre-existing conditions that should not return to school within this phase. I'm asking, you would have the children in the fifth form who may have the asthma and so on. How do you treat those? Because some may feel that may be an unbalanced day at home and others are in a physical classroom. So how do you plan to treat with those?
Thank you, Sharon. A very important and vital question to be answered, but I'll pass it on to our Chief Education Officer as she provide the clarity.
Okay, as it relates to treating with students with pre-existing conditions, everything that holds under normal circumstances will hold. We expect that the parent would communicate that to the principal and likewise to the Ministry of Education in turn. And the necessary things would hold, such as there's the issue of being absent from examinations with a valid medical document. If there is sufficient information inside, CXC normally uses a prorating mechanism. And if it's a case where it cannot be facilitated any other time, then the child would just have to be graded as absent and seek to have it done privately or so in the following year. Or if the school has space to accommodate that child to repeat Form 5, that would also be something for consideration.
I'll just add one more thing in addition to what the CEO said, that if there's a child with an underlying condition and that parent is of the impression that the child is well enough to return to school and the parent wants that child to do the exam, that parent also has a choice but must put in writing that they are allowing their child to return to school or to be able to do that exam. And of course, whatever support can be given, but we are advising that persons with underlying condition, that parents be mindful that they will be at additional risk.
Sherry, do you have another question? Go ahead, Sherry Ann.
Yes, I do. I have two others. One has to do with the CPEA. Know that it is confirmed that there wouldn't be an actual exam. Normally, come the second week of June, you would get a release as to the schools that the children would be placed in. How soon will a placement be made? And in terms of the mask, because it was only yesterday that the Minister of Health and so was speaking of proper masks, PS said that parents are required to ensure that their children have a mask. But would you have something special so they know what are the proper masks that the children should be attired with?
So I'll allow CEO to answer the question of the mask, which would be guided generally. But I just want to, and I'm trying not to remember the first question. What was the first point she made again?
The mask.
No, before the mask.
Sherry, can you just repeat?
The first question.
Oh, the placement of the students. Thank you.
Of the children.
Right.
How soon?
Right. And I just want to answer that by saying at this point we do not want to give any commitments in terms of timelines. As you would know, it is actually the first time we are faced with a situation like this. As you have noticed with all other things during this period, the ministry has really stepped up to the plate in terms of managing the situation. We prefer to say to you that we are going to do the very best we can without making a commitment in terms of time. Our objective is to impress you that we'll deliver in a timely manner, but we do not want to make a commitment at this time.
All right. Mikey, good morning.
Hi, good morning. With regards to students who show up on the compound not wearing a mask or not having a mask in their possession, what happens then? Would they be sent home, or will the school be providing masks to those persons?
Okay. As you know, we are guided by the protocol from the Ministry of Health. What we have in our back-to-school protocol states that parents are encouraged to have their child equipped with a mask or other face coverings such as a scarf, scarf or other suitable device, other suitable covering. So this is much as we can say for now, and we'll be guided by any further information coming from the Ministry of Health. The protocol would speak to that.
Do you have another question, Mikey?
I would probably just add one more thing, and that's outside of the Ministry of Education officially, to say that at the community level, we do understand that, you know, most persons may be selling a mask for as much as $10. I believe I've seen advertisements to that effect. And while we do say that if you don't have a mask, you can use a face covering, I did appeal to my cabinet colleagues that at the constituency level, if there's any support for very vulnerable families, I have received that commitment that in whatever way possible at the constituency level, very vulnerable families, efforts would be made to assist.
Mm-hmm. Mikey, any other question?
Yes, what about social distancing within the classes? I know that you spoke to that to some extent. I know that there are some schools that are smaller than others. So is it when there are big classes that the students will be placed outside of the classroom, or at all times it will be done within the building itself?
Okay. The principals are charged with that responsibility. There has to be that adherence, 6 feet distancing protocol. The desk and chairs are to be arranged in that order. It's spelled out in the protocol. And the other challenge would be during the break time. So during the break time, we recommend open space eating because the mask must come off at that time. And at that time, the distance would go up to 12 feet. So we're encouraging outside eating, packaged meals, so nothing in plates and platters, and 12 feet distancing during those periods. But in the classroom, desk seating 6 feet.
Also to add, Mikey, one of the good things with relation to that concern, and I'm sure others, is that principals have been meeting collectively and they have been discussing, they have been looking at how all of this could work in the event that this decision was taken. So this would not be breaking news to our principals, I believe, because they have been putting plans in place just in the event. And just to say to you too, an additional measure that was put in place, if you notice when I gave the phases, phase 1 is when the principals and others report to school to start that preparation. So working out all of the logistical issues to ensure that by the next week when the students return, that all systems would be in place. So I think this is one of the advantages that we do have in this situation, that principals have already been looking at the logistics.
Okay, Linda Straker, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to all. My question, I have a number of questions. The first thing I have to do, I will ask about is the students, the minister mentioned of students going back to school, the Form 5 students, and I can safely think is for those who have to be doing CXC. Linked to CXC exam is the whole issue now of attending college. What is going to happen to students who want to attend college come September or whenever it's going to happen? And at the same time, what is happening to students who are supposed to be doing CAPE? Students at TAMCC who have to be doing CAPE. Can you tell us what is going to happen to them and are there any special protocols involved for those students who are at TAMCC and have to do CAPE?
Right, so let me say that a special brief will come specific to do with CAPE and the college and all that's happening there. But let me just say to you that the CAPE examinations will also take place this year. And of course, the college has been working very hard. The council has been working very hard. Facilitators, tutors have been working very hard, lecturers, in preparing those students. But we will want to do something special and separate for TAMCC. But I can tell you that the CAPE examination will take place this year. So you may want to add as it relates to the CSEC students transiting to TAMCC.
As it stands, TAMCC has already begun the application process for students desirous of entering the college for this year. And for the CSEC examination, we all know it's not normal time, so we do not expect that everything will go as before. But once the results are out, TAMCC will then utilize those. So the commitment of CXC is that the results for CSEC will be out sometime in September. So it does indicate a late start for students who may want to enter, but TAMCC is also committed to having them get provisional entry based on the scores that are already available for those students.
Do you have another question, Linda?
The question has to do, traditionally we know that the months of late June into July is graduation time. Are students going to be graduating this year in Grenada after the adjustment? Are we going to see any form of graduation, the exception of, I think the Anglican High School normally have graduation in December, which might possibly. But what about the other students who, what's the deal now with graduation and students?
Okay. So just to say, Linda, I would say that we would have a special consultation and special announcement on graduations. I do would want to. I know people would be very concerned about graduation, but I think they would be most concerned at this time with the examination. So once we cross that bridge, we're gonna get over to the side of graduation, and we will come back to the general public.
You have another, Linda?
No.
Sorry?
No.
All right. Anybody else, colleagues? Sherry Ann, go right ahead. Sherry, is your mic?
Yes, I just wanted to go back a bit to, I think it was Ms. Finley's response as it relates to the way the students will have lunch in terms of the 12 feet and the no platters and plates. What I want to ask is, in this dispensation, does it mean that parents has to provide the lunch for the children, or is it that whatever will be sold in the schools will not be distributed in plates and platters? And if there are new protocols in terms of how the cooks and so will operate and the vendors.
Okay, at this time we are encouraging parents and guardians to go with the packed lunches, pre-packed lunches for their children. At the school, principals have also given a commitment to see where possible a tuck shop can function for the preparation of meals. But we are really encouraging parents to give the pre-packed lunches, because having to line up for lunches and all of that with the distancing, it would mean a longer time before every child can be refreshed, and we do not want to keep them on the school's compound for any longer than necessary. Yeah.
I just wanted to add, Sherry, that the tuck shop and the cook's operation will be guided by the protocol set out for restaurants and for places that prepare meals. It will be amended a bit so that it can fit into the school system most appropriately, but those protocols would be used to guide the preparation and distribution of meals at the various schools.
That's it, Cherry. All right, Mikey, go right ahead. You have another question?
Yes, I do. Now, we cannot underestimate the fluidity and how deceitful the COVID-19 can be. Will students be required to undergo daily temperature checks?
So we are not insisting that daily temperature checks be administered to the students. What we are asking is that they be sanitized, hand sanitized before entering the compound. Of course, if we are able to secure those equipment within that time, we would go even further than we are committing at this time. But at this time, it is not mandatory that every school would do that before the students enter. But we believe with all of the systems in place, mind you that those protocols have been vetted by the Ministry of Health, the COVID-19 committee, and they feel satisfied that at this stage that those would be able to protect our students sufficiently. You are absolutely correct that this situation is fluid, and it's not impossible that within a week we can say that there would be an amended version to the protocol. As it is right now, our health officials seems to be comfortable that we can proceed as we are at this point with the protocols. They were approved by the Ministry of Health.
Do you have another one, Mikey?
Yes, let me understand. Help us to understand what happens at the end of the school day. So let's say at 2:20, 2:30 school is out. Do we have a plan to ensure that there wouldn't be any congregating of students or all the students trying to rush to one bus or rush to two buses at the same time, and then probably that would just defeat the purpose of the social distancing that occurred within the school compound?
So as it relates to public transportation, I am certain that sometime this week you would be hearing some protocols from the Ministry of Works as it relates to public transport, as it relates to that area where people congregate to catch a bus or to take the bus. And we would also be guided by those protocols as it relates to number of persons on a bus and all of that. So as you notice, a broad statement was made as it relates to our guidance by the protocols and the developments as it relates to public transportation, because everything we do will obviously be hinged on what decision is taken with regards to public transportation. As I said, an announcement should be made shortly within this week. But we are going to continue. We're asking parents to continue to guide students or their children as it relates to that. And the principals, the staff at the school will also be guiding immediately after school. No loitering would be allowed on the school compound. We expect that students would leave immediately after they completed, and they would be advised to get home within the shortest possible time frame. Additionally, we have solicited the support, and I know the Commissioner of Police, obviously, who has responsibilities as it relates to those enforcing of those regulations, they would also give full support to the Ministry of Education in ensuring that there's a zero tolerance for loitering as it relates to students, and I'm sure that would relate to others as it relates to those areas where persons would congregate for taking the bus to get home.
Okay, and in terms of what is managing the movement on the plant, on and off the plant, we are also looking at a staggering. So the first batch would come in about 30 minutes if where there's that, many students, let's say 100 students on the school compound. They wouldn't all come at the same time. So we'd stagger 30 minutes so that everybody would not have to have lunch, for example, at the same time. So the departure and arrival would be staggered to minimize the chances of crowding.
Mikey, that's it for you? Okay, great. Sherry-Ann, I see your hand. You have another question. Go right ahead. Okay, we seem to be having a little issue there. Sherry-Ann, are you ready? Okay, colleagues.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yes, Les, are you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you now, Sherry-Ann. Go ahead.
Yes, my final two questions. I just wanted to ask the Minister if there is a plan B, just in case members of the bus association doesn't agree with the protocol in terms of how many passengers can board the bus. That's in terms of getting children to school, if there is a plan B. And then I think it was P.S. Andel who mentioned, and I'm asking this one on behalf of a parent. She said she thinks she heard P.S. said that if the child or children is experiencing flu-like symptoms, that the parent should be notified. But she says she thinks, based on the protocols, they said if you experience flu-like symptoms, you call the hotline. So you can just shed some clarity on that to the parent as to who should get the call first, and the plan B for the protocol for buses in terms of getting children to and from the institutions.
Thank you very much for that. The reporting by the principal is dual. The principal will contact the hotline as well as the parent, because you're dealing with minors here, and you have to take into consideration that the parents are the ones who have the authorization in many instances. So it is incumbent upon us to do this, to fulfill the national guideline and to also to fulfill which is law, that we contact the parents as well as the hotline. So who responds first? We cannot see, but that is what we have to do as the Ministry of Education. Dual reporting.
Thank you, P.S. We have another question here from a viewer, Minister. In terms of renovations for schools, is this going to be done for September? Although we know things are going in phases.
Okay. So I'm going to attempt to answer Sherry-Ann's question first, and then to speak to September and renovation of schools. As it relates to the bus association and whether they cooperate or don't cooperate, I'm not in a position to say what they will or won't do, but I sit here trusting that the bus association would see the importance of this and that they would fully support. Should they not support, and I don't even want to speak to this because I believe they will, I believe that the Ministry of Education will be able to move to Plan B. And Plan B, I would just say, is finding a way to get all of our students to school, students and teachers where necessary, to get to school to get those exams completed. The renovation, of our schools. I just want to say that while we are in very difficult times, while there's so many things on our plate that we are dealing with at the same time, I want to commend all of those persons at the Ministry of Education who have been so committed, all of our stakeholders who have been so committed during this period, that indeed I can answer a question like this, that while we deal with the big issues, the challenges, we are also continuing a number of things as normal. So this week we're actually going to be having the sword turning ceremony for the expansion of one of our schools. So we do not want to wait on COVID-19 to decide to deal with or address critical issues as it relates to education and continuing all that we have started before. So as it relates to renovation, while this is not the subject of conversation, I would just say we will continue to do all that we can. Over $20 million has been secured in very recent times, and we have been working very closely with the Ministry of Finance, and those funds are now available for additional work on schools throughout the island. And all that is possible now, we are very thankful that the construction sector has opened, and that will obviously facilitate some of the work that we have to do there. And the government remains totally committed. forgive me if I am the one to say it, but credit must be given to this government for the work that has been done during this period and how we have been able, with the support of all of our stakeholders, to manage in these very difficult times. So even the conversation about students heading back to school, it required government to dig deep again and to commit significantly in a financial way to make this possible. You heard the Permanent Secretary speak about additional cleaners, additional security officers. Think about the amount of resources that would be necessary for all of our 19 public secondary schools, and we are quite prepared to assist the 2 private schools as well as it relates to preparation for this very difficult venture that we are about to take. May the Lord be with us as we go, but this is no easy task. But I'm very optimistic, I'm very confident with the level of support that has been committed from our various stakeholders. I believe we are going to do this, and we're going to do it well, and that our students will remain safe during that period. So I just want to say we continue to do all that we can do during this period, and this government is 100% committed to ensure that education, which is an absolute priority of this government, that education is given the necessary support that is needed so that we can ensure students continue to benefit and we continue to give the best opportunities to our students at the same time.
Minister, forgive me if we went through this, but somebody's asking, and I can't really recall if any provisions made for school-leaving students and private CXC students. Did we touch on that at all?
Right, so I'll allow the CEO to comment on the school leaving. Of course, had this been normal times, we would have been making some other statements on school leaving. We have not really addressed this, but just to give the public a general sense of where we are heading, we are moving away from the issue of the exam that we normally refer to as school leaving. We want to have the time when we can explain the why and the alternatives that we are presenting to those group of persons. But in the immediate, I'll ask the CEO to comment on what is it as it relates to those 2 issues.
Okay.
That is to do with the school leaving examination for this year, and also as it relates to private candidates.
Okay, so for private candidates, the centers would be up and running. The centers are already identified and officers are working to ensure, well, examining them, assessing in the same regard for the social distancing. So private candidates would be accommodated at centers as per usual for the CSEC exams. And as it relates to the school leaving exams, once again, based on the level of the number of candidates, the slant right now is towards the postponing of that assessment as well. And as you do know, this year it was gazetted that it was to be the last year for the exams, but because some persons are already committed to it, we would look at accommodating those students as soon as it is possible. Yep.
Thank you very much. Linda Straker, you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do have a number of follow-up questions. One was already answered, so I'm going to ask now. Can the minister tell us how much students are expected to be sitting exam, Form 5 students sitting CXC exam at the new time, as well as the number of students expected to transit from primary school to secondary school come September under the new system? And the final one I had here was the online classes. What's the feedback with regard to Form 5 students? Are teachers satisfied that Form 5 students would have been getting as much as possible as part of the preparation for the exam? Has the online classes really impacted, or there is a need to actually bring them back in the classroom to literally go engage in some remedial studies with them?
That's it, Linda. Mm-hmm. So So the two questions in terms of figures and number of students specifically, I'm going to ask the CEO to give some approximate numbers there. With regards to online classes and the preparation of students, remember we have been in consultation with principals, we have been in consultation with students and parents in that decision that we took. So generally speaking, what I have been hearing is that we did complete the syllabus in most cases. Even before we went off on that break, we have been doing additional work, past papers and so on. And I believe that those weeks that persons are returning to the classroom would be sufficient time for that final preparation, recapping, remedial and so on. And I believe we should be okay in terms of our students. And I just want to refer back to a previous time, Hurricane Ivan, and we did see how resilient many of our students were at that time, and I don't believe we should underestimate our students at all. We give them all the support. We have not spoken to the psychosocial plan that is in place as it relates to all of our counselors being placed in schools. Each school will have more than one counselor on site daily, and there are classes and there are sessions rather that are designed specifically to give that kind of psychosocial support to all of our students. And I believe we can do this. I strongly believe we can do this. So CEO, if you can just give an approximate figure. Students for CPA, student for CSEC.
Yes, for both examinations, it would be somewhere in the region of about 1,700 approximately. Okay.
Thank you, CEO. Linda, any other question?
No.
Anybody else has any question, colleagues? We're approaching the 1 hour mark, so now is your time to get in your final question. Oh, Mikey, go right ahead.
I'm just seeking some clarity because I know in mentioning of the phases, one of the phases will start on June 1st, and that is the preparation for the return of fifth form students to the school. But it doesn't actually happen on the 1st because I know that that's going to be a holiday.
Well, just to say preparation can mean being on physical site as well as off-site, so I don't think the holiday. And we have some principals who are so committed, they would best be able to tell you what they also do on holidays. But we meant June 1st because we actually believe that principals are able to navigate. Doesn't mean that they have to be on site, but we wanted to have a full week there. It may be communication, it may be a number of things, but just to again commend principals, they are totally in support of this and totally in support of working with the ministry to make this happen. So it doesn't mean being in the school or on the school compound, but June 1st, yes.
Any other quick question, colleagues? Okay, I think everybody has exhausted all their questions. So, Honorable Minister, Mr. Andal and Mrs. Findlay, I'll give you an opportunity to say any final words that you may have, and then we'll wrap this up.
So, Leslie, I just want to close this off by saying that this is a very difficult time. We've had to make some very difficult decisions. We have had to take decisions in the interests of Grenada, in the interests of our students. We have invested millions of dollars during this period. Speaking about devices, we came to the public and we said government will do its best, mindful of the situation, not just here in Grenada, but throughout the world. And government was prepared at that time to commit to about 11,000 devices. Government went back to the drawing board, and with the support of all of our partners in education, we have been able to increase that amount to over 20,000. And so I'm making this point to say that we can remain very confident that this government, in this time, as we have traveled through difficult times before, we continue to travel through this COVID-19 era, this period of time, knowing that it will be tough, but knowing too that we are going to get through this together with the support of all of our relevant stakeholders. And on that note, I want to specially recognize and specially express gratitude to all of our stakeholders, particularly on this particular subject that we are discussing. I want to recognize all of our principals who were part of the very difficult consultative period. I want to recognize too the Grenada Union of Teachers. We have been in consultation with them, and I want to thank them for all of their feedback and all of their support in the interests of the development of our children. And I want to recognize the denominational boards, the representative from the different church organizations who have been involved in the discussion on this very subject and for their contribution to the discussion. Very important to recognize our parents and our students. I was extremely impressed with the responses and the contribution during the consultation. Close to 500 parents and students were online meeting with the Minister for Education. I mean, it blew me away, the kind of contribution made by students, not just at the secondary school level, but also at the primary school level. And I just want to say, from all of this, I am extremely hopeful that we are going to rise and that our education system will be far better off because of all that we've been able to do during this very difficult period.
Well, I just want to highlight one important word in all of this. I should say maybe a phrase, maximizing opportunities. COVID-19 has presented us with unique opportunities, and I can say that the Ministry of Education and its stakeholders, we have endeavored to maximize as much as possible on those opportunities. We have seen people coming together for the good of the student. We have had persons calling and wishing us well. We have had persons praying for us. I can tell you that we have seen things happening during COVID-19 that we have never seen before. And I just want to remind us that we should, as much as possible, remember that the future of this nation is hinged on the quality of education that we give to our students. And together, we can do this. Together, that we can make it happen. And I'm a firm believer that we would emerge out of COVID-19 stronger and better. Thank you.
Yes, I also want to take this time to thank all staff at the Ministry of Education for the support that they have been giving, going the extra mile to make things happen, having to do things at very short notice and delivering of a high quality. I also want to reassure the general public that health and safety, as we think education continues to be of paramount importance. I want to also thank all those, and I am thanking all those who are reaching out in various ways, asking how they can assist, and we encourage others to come on board. It is a task that we cannot conquer all on our own. We do rely on the support of external stakeholders. And for those who may be still discouraged that the exam is scheduled for July and not September, as one student said during their consultation, do we know what September looks like? At least we know what July looks like. It's closer to stability now. PAHO is indicating they may be peaking. It has not yet, COVID-19 is yet to peak for the Caribbean. So which means if that's the case, peaking seems further away. So while July is uncertain, there will be greater uncertainty the further down we go down the road. So again, for those who may not be happy, this decision has been made, and we are working with the interests of all at heart, and we are committed to doing the best we can for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To the panel, Honorable Emmeline Pear, Minister for Education, Human Resource Development, Religious Affairs and Information, Mr. Kevin Andal, the Permanent Secretary, and Mrs. Angela Finley, the Chief Education Officer. And thank you for all of you who have been viewing or listening. Colleagues, we also thank you so much. We have a lot of information to report on, and we know that things are progressing. So, of course, for those of you who ask questions pertaining to the pre-primary schools and the primary schools and all that, we will get to those eventually. But as the education officials said, we have to take things in strides and just do everything in a manner that we still ensure that everyone's health is of paramount importance, and we have to make sure that everybody is safe at this time. Thank you so much for viewing. I'm Leslie Ann Johnson. Have a blessed day, everybody.
Things you need to know about self-isolation. Stay home. If you are told to self-isolate, it means staying at home, not going to work, school, or other public places, and you should not have any visitors. Separate yourself. If you live with others, then you need to stay in a well-ventilated bedroom with the door shut. If you have to share a bathroom, then use it after everyone else. Don't share towels and toiletries, as this may put others at risk. Call ahead. If you develop symptoms such as a fever or cough, then seek advice first by calling the Ministry of Health's hotline at 538-4787 or 458-4787. Please do not show up at a medical center or hospital, as this may put others at risk. Take care with waste. If you test positive, your waste should be double bagged and disposed of separately. Create a buddy system. If you live on your own, you can plan with friends and family to check in with each other and run essential errands if one becomes sick. Once sick, they should leave groceries on the doorstep. Why it's important. COVID-19 causes a mild illness for 4 out of 5 persons. Self-isolating will help protect the older generation and those who may have underlying health problems from getting infected.
Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new national party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.